Satnam. Happy full moon in Scorpio. It is the 23rd April 2024. Today's a Tuesday. The one thing I didn't write down is exactly what time the full moon happened or it will happen. Doesn't necessarily matter. We're in the frequency of. We're in the frequency of the full moon. And I'll find out in a minute what time it's at. The full moon, in general, always a time of release and remembering and reliving and releasing. So we go through this process of ending cycles, ending energetic habits, and otherwise things that just hold us back. So the full moon is that, and the Scorpio moon is it's a particularly this is not for lack of a better word. This is a great word for it. It's volatile. There's a volatility about the Scorpio moon, and that volatility isn't necessarily like a bad volatility. It's just there is a volatile nature to the Scorpio moon. It has an intensity. It has an extreme tendency in its movement, and this is very contrary to the nature of the moon itself. The moon is not an extreme thing. Is not an extreme energy. The moon is soft and caring and compassionate and embracing and nurturing, protective. And there are certain elements of the lunar energy that are, that would lean toward extreme. But the moon in Scorpio is the amplified version of that. So when we get the full moon in Scorpio, there's a certain volatility about things. At the same time, it's somewhat muted. It's like there's a subliminal frequency of intensity that isn't necessarily here on the surface. The moon is a very subsurface energy, and Scorpio is a very subsurface energy in different ways, though. So that's where we get to play with this. The moon, subsurface, being the emotion, the feeling body, the feeling self of the human incarnation. It's the heart. It's the thing that interacts with the ideas and the experiences that we have. Not with the people or the outer world itself, but with the experience as we have it. So we have an experience, and the emotion, our moon, interacts with that experience and creates a memory or a physiological storage unit or a trauma or whatever it is. The moon, the emotional self, is the thing that's interacting with the experience and with our thought and basically creating us as a means of deciding and moving into the world. So the moon is subsurface in that way. It's the emotional, internal, not necessarily, I will say this very straightforwardly, it is the illogical. It's not that it is against logic, but it is not the logical faculty. It is the subjective, the feeling, the very malleable and movable faculty of the human. And so that's the subsurface element of the moon. The subsurface element of Scorpio is the psyche. So when we think about Scorpio, we think of all of that which is psychological. And this is layer number one. It's the psychological layer of Scorpio. elements of our psyche. We have obviously the consciousness, the conscious awareness, and then we have the subconscious and unconscious realms, which are infinitely expansive beyond that of the conscious understanding of things. And I think, what was it? So our sensory system, we'll just go with it this way. Our sensory system, like our five senses, are taking in, estimated to be taking in the equivalent of 11 million bits of information per second, if we calculate it in computer terms. But what we're consciously aware of is the equivalent of 16 of those 11 million. No, not 16 million or 1,000 or 100, no, 16. It's 1/6 bits of information per second. That's what we're consciously aware of. So the amount of information that we're taking in that is not consciously perceived is huge by comparison. Scorpio rules this particular part, all of that which is underneath. It is the realm of the hidden. It is the realm of the shrouded and undiscovered, or it's the realm of that which goes to discover. So we have the psychological element, all of the experiences that we hold within our minds, all of the memories that we kind of shut into the back and leave to just be there, all of the things that we hide from ourselves and from other people. Scorpio rules all of that. So when the moon moves through Scorpio, we get our kind of subsurface faculties moving together. Now, another layer of the subsurface element of Scorpio. Scorpio also rules all that is the occult. So the occult meaning hidden wisdoms, hidden magic, hidden practices. It is secret societies and, it's secret societies and shamanic traditions and witches, warlocks, and sorcerers. I don't know what the technical term is for the, wizard? I don't know. There's a technical definition of like, there's the practitioner of light magic, male, practitioner of light magic, female, practitioner of dark magic, male, anyway, all of those are ruled by Scorpio, the practitioners of witchcraft and the shamanic traditions, people who do therapy with psychedelics, which is kind of the meeting of modern therapy with psychedelics, which is the kind of meeting of the shamanic traditions and the psychiatric endeavor of the Western world. All of these things are ruled by Scorpio. Scorpio is a very powerful place. Obviously, it's all of the hidden magic that we don't know. It's all of the hidden places that we're not quite comfortable enough to look. But Scorpio is also it is revealing. It is constantly trying to reveal. So anything that we discover within the Scorpionic realm is held onto as a relevant piece of information, as a relevant piece of transformative potential. Everything that is discovered within Scorpio is transformative potential. So we have the moon in Scorpio. We have these subliminal faculties. The moon, obviously, it's a full moon. It's opposing the sun, which is in Taurus, the home of the moon's favorite place to be. The thing about the moon in Scorpio is it's like the least comfortable place for the soft and forgiving moon. It's the least comfortable place because Scorpio is this intense, this very intense, very intentional and dissecting kind of energy. It is that which dissects, and it's also very controlling. Can be. if it's misused, or it's the desire to have some element of control over the environment is a scorpionic thing, to control the environment so that everything happens precisely as it's supposed to, because that creates the greatest opportunity for further exploration, right? Obviously, the unexpected is the unexpected, but to control as much of the element as possible. And that can obviously turn into tyranny. It's very, it's a very dominant energy, the Scorpio. So when miscalculated, misused, or misappropriated, it's a very toxic place, which again is part of why the moon in Scorpio is a very powerful placement, because the toxicities of the subconscious and the unconscious realms are manifold. So we have the moon in Scorpio. We have several warnings about the moon in Scorpio. We have the full moon in Scorpio, which gives us the opportunity to release. And what are we releasing? The moon asks us to release emotional baggage and unnecessary, habits and logics that we've overused or abused or have become completely outdated. And it asks us to move things out from the depth of us that holds us back from our greater potential. So the moon in Scorpio calls directly to release the things within our own deepest psyche, within our own deepest subconscious realms, and allow for those things to go away. Now, this is not like it can be an easy process. It can be an easy thing where just suddenly you realize that this thing which had some great hold over you is no longer affecting you in the way that it used to. And that can happen through this moon in Scorpio. You can also intentionally drive toward the release of specific things if you're willing to look into and go through some kind of self-evaluative place, which is, well, it's a very good time for it. Mercury is retrograde in Aries, which is a very it's an interesting contrast. Mercury in retrograde is typically very internalized and slow moving, but then the Aries element kind of adds an agitation to it, so that those two contrasting energies are actually very fantastic for digging into your own psyche and digging into your own traumas, or doing whatever it is, doing shadow work, or whatever shadow work is in your definition, doing work with the shadowy elements of your own personality, with the shadowy elements of your own psyche, and with your own experience. So there's that element of fun which can come out of this. Then we have the clincher, the fun part. It's all fun as far as I'm concerned. So the moon in Scorpio, the sun in Taurus. Again, Taurus is the moon's favorite place to be. So Scorpio naturally would be its least favorite place to be. There's that agitation, that kind of desire to escape a certain hold, which is weird because it's also controlling. The moon wants out of the Scorpion's grip. The only major placement directly affecting this full moon is Pluto. To add a layer of the scorpionic, the planet of Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, the natural modern ruler of Scorpio. This is the planet of transformation, of deep psychological understanding and ultimate revelation into a more complete self. Pluto will not arbitrarily tear things apart that need to be torn apart so that the real part can be revealed. It's like, well, it's like tearing open a coconut. In one way, you have these coconuts which fall from the tree or have to be retrieved from the tree, and they're these large things, and you have to get the entire husk off, which is a whole process. Unless you do it all day, every day, and you know exactly what you're doing, you have exactly the right tools. It's a process. You're gonna have fun with that. The husk is dry. It's brittle. It's uncomfortable to work with, and it takes a lot of it takes a lot of process to get to the actual thing at the center of the coconut that you want, which is the water and the flesh of the coconut. You want what's inside the coconut, the life force within the coconut. You have to go through a lot to get to that. And Pluto is the thing that tears apart everything around the outside to get to what is filled with life at the center. So we have Pluto in Aquarius. This placement, which is, with exception to a short couple of months at the end of this year, Pluto's in Aquarius for the next 20 years. It's until 2044. And Pluto, we can only speculate. We haven't actually seen Pluto in Aquarius since it's been discovered. So there's plenty of that energy which is yet to be revealed. But from what we can gather of what Pluto is and what Pluto seems to be and what we know Aquarius to be, Pluto in Aquarius begins to tear apart all of the things that hold people unnecessarily together, which is good and also has a dark side. And it also tears apart all the things that hold us unnecessarily apart, so that what is left is a society filled with individuals. And it's our job after that tearing apart process to learn how to connect necessarily and how to appropriately disconnect necessarily. There is a lot of that which we don't yet understand. It's not ingrained in our psyche. We haven't encapsulated that particular part of the human development yet. And it's going to take a little while to figure it out. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be weird. It already is. Pluto in Aquarius squaring the full moon in Scorpio. Yay. So the planet of death and rebirth and transformation and the shredding apart of all things that hold us back from our highest potential, from our central life force and its own purpose on this planet. We've got Mercury retrograde is immaculate, really. A distant ex just texted me. All right, so the nature of Pluto in Aquarius as it squares the Scorpio moon lets us, or adds an additional, we're going to say it adds what's a good metaphor for this? Fuel to the fire doesn't quite do it. I'm not sure precisely. It adds a great deal of intensity. It adds a great deal of actual pressure or potential energy. We're going to call it potential energy, because you really have to work to activate the Plutonian element, at least on an individual level, in an individual scale at the moment. So thinking of it in that fashion, you can, if you so decide, tap in very deeply to things that I mean, honestly, could be plenty of things that you've never actually considered as necessary to change within yourself. Whatever the case, you can find very deep pockets of available energy and come to witness what it is that surrounds those pockets of energy, keeping them from you. Release those things, whether it's in a symbolic sense, which is an interesting way to practice. If you think about it in the sense of, I'm approaching this this internal world of mine, and I'm going to see it in symbols. So instead of thinking, I'm going to have a talk therapy session and relive in great and gory detail the exact traumas that I wish to release. No, instead of doing that, you can work in a sensory and symbolic level, which is a much more akin to the shamanic traditions, to find the places within your energetic sphere which need attention, which need life and help and movement, and work with, talk to, communicate with, sense into these various places within yourself, and ask them, understand from them what they need. Whether it's the work of symbolism within your own visualized projection, or the work of practical action within your day-to-day life, or the consultation of various elders or wise humans within your available social sphere, whatever it is, you can work with it that way. You can work with it however you want. Work with it, with tarot or astrology or numerology, or maybe you have your own set of intuitive symbols which you kind of like to dream about and have some understanding of. That could be fun to further develop that self-practice. There's a lot of really like rich potential. Like I said, the Pluto is potential energy, and it adds a weight. There it is. It adds a gravity to the work that you decide to do. So whatever you do will be amplified by this. Whatever shovel you take to dig up whatever it is you're going to dig up, you're going to get a hell of a lot farther than you thought if you decide to actively go for it. So that's the point. That's the point I was driving toward. Other things affecting this, I mean, Pluto in Aquarius is squaring this, which is a challenging aspect. We have to consider the fact that it is challenging and understand that it will bring shit up that you didn't necessarily want to have brought up, unless you actively went for it and decided that you did want to bring it up, which is a much more effective way to deal with this shit. Because like when you do it on purpose, you get more done, and the body responds to it differently. It's not the same as having it thrust upon you. It's a much different experience. The body is much more capable, and it is much more driven toward when you do it on purpose. Also really satisfying when you face something voluntarily that you didn't want to, and you even minimally succeed. You can even fail tremendously. You feel really good about the fact that you did it on purpose. So there's that. So that's the call. Do it on purpose. That's all for today, I think. Yeah. Oh, right. Jupiter and Uranus are still conjunct in Taurus, which is relevant because the sun is in Taurus, and we're moving toward, the sun will. This isn't for another 17 days. 18 days, the sun will meet with Uranus, and then a couple of days after that, it will meet with Jupiter, still in Taurus. And so it's a lovely month, but we're still, technically we're still in the eclipse cycle. I forgot about that. I forgot to mention that. So we're technically still in the eclipse lunar cycle, because the new moon in Aries was the solar eclipse. So this lunar cycle is flavored by and continually affected in the context of the eclipse. So unexpected is the name of the game. And not even unexpected isn't quite the right word for it. Unexpected is like Uranian territory, which we just had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. But the the otherwise improbable, like the things that, you know, they're possible, they exist within the realm of possibility, and still they feel a little further away than you thought. It's like, it's definitely something in between this is absolute reality and this was completely unexpected. You know, Uranus is the kind of unexpected that like traumatizes you because your nervous system didn't have the ability to handle it. It's like that kind of unexpected. It's natural disasters and sudden explosions and the infinite potential of the human life and interaction to traumatize you. It's all of the things that happen, the unexpected things that happen. But the eclipses are very much like something not quite to that extent. It's expected as possible, but it's not expected as probable. The things that we don't see as likely start to happen within the eclipses, and they're affected by the eclipses. So especially if you had something in the sign of Aries nearby the eclipse, or in the sign of Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn also, but particularly in Aries and Libra, those two were affected most by these eclipses. And so pay attention to that. Pay attention to that very carefully if you had those. We're still working with this movement, and the full moon in Scorpio adds a layer of depth to that. It adds 1,000 layers of depth to that. All right, I think that's all I have to say today. This is a full moon which is not to be underestimated. Enjoy the next 2 weeks. And if you don't enjoy them, at least feel satisfied in your effort, in your conscious effort to do something on purpose, whatever it is. I believe much will change in the next 2 weeks. Satnam.